Hey guys! So finally, after some great delay, we are sailing out once again. This time having a closer look at the Japanese CVs and the Tier 4 HOSHO in particular. I know quite a few of you were a bit disappointed when you finally got your hands on some of the carriers, especially the ones on the Japanese tech tree, as there have been some major changes since most of the previous carrier-themed videos have been released. You just won't have those epic moments anymore when you were able to score a dozen torpedo hits at once, but probably that's for the better overall. Not to worry though, apart from the ship review, we will also look at the Japanese CVs in general, as they can be super effective indeed. Hopefully, the gameplay I selected for this video will show you exactly that, as over 110,000 damage is not bad at all for any Tier 4 ship. If you want to jump ahead to the action bits, the link stands ready in the description below. As for the rest of us, let's get into mood by having a closer look at the original HOSHO that did serve in the Imperial Japanese Navy almost 100 years ago. This ship was a true pioneer, and there are a couple of respectable records tied to its name, which by the way roughly translates to Phoenix. The HOSHO was the world's first commissioned ship that was designed and built as a designated aircraft carrier. Just think about the Langley for a second that has been converted from a coal transport ship. And, well, it's also no surprise to anyone that this was also the first ever aircraft carrier of the Imperial Japanese Navy. Commissioned in 1922, the HOSHO remained in service right up until the end of the Second World War and was scrapped only by 1946. During her long service time, and especially in the early years, she provided valuable intel as a test ship, testing out equipment, tactics and operations, though her active role in the soon emerging battles over the Pacific was rather limited. Not to say that she didn't see action, she was actually involved in the Shanghai incident in 1932 and in the Sino-Japanese War in 1937, providing mostly support to the ground forces through bombing runs and engaging the enemy fighters. She was even involved in the Battle of Midway in 1942 in a secondary support role, but most of her time from 1939 was actually spent as a training carrier. As the years passed, she just was not capable of servicing the newer aircraft types properly anymore, and her very limited capacity of only 15 planes made her a secondary asset as well. Nonetheless, her pioneer work has paved the way before a list of very dangerous Japanese carriers that followed her. Now, after all this history lesson, let's have a look at the main differences between the American and the Japanese CVs, and how you can play them. I have found a rather useful forum post as well on the subject on the NA forums. You will find the link once again in the description below. Now, if you want to summarize these tech trees, the American line is all about the air supremacy, while the Japanese line has torpedoes written all over it with huge capital letters. The Americans get large squads with 6 planes in each, but are limited to a maximum of 1 torpedo squadron right up until the highest of tiers, although they get a very precise drop with manual aiming. Overall, they are great in terrorizing the enemy planes while cleaning up with the dive bombers and unleashing some precise torpedo drops from time to time, but their direct damage dealing potential is quite limited, at least in the current patch. Now, Japanese CVs take a completely different approach. Their squads are much smaller with only 4 planes in each, and their planes seem to be more fragile as well. Naturally, this also means that the Japanese fighters are more of a distraction than anything else, as they will even have trouble shooting down enemy American bombers effectively, not to mention the enemy fighters. Their planes, however, are very quick and quick to reload, which gets further enhanced by the fact that the Japanese CVs themselves are faster and usually more agile as well than their American counterparts. Now, all of this translates to a much better rate of fire, and the aim of a Japanese CV captain should be to deliver lots and lots of smaller attacks rather than focusing on one devastating blast. Even more so, as contrary to the American planes, does not change the spread of the torpedoes this time around, which means that you will always have a wide spread of 4 torpedoes at the very best. Now let's be realistic for a second. The optimal drop with these conditions should be a 2 torpedo hit per squadron. But don't worry, damage will start to pile up really fast if you keep up the momentum and do run after run. There are, of course, a couple of things you have to look out for to be successful. First of all, expect enemy ships turning into you when they realize the immediate threat. Due to this, crossfire with multiple squadrons can be more effective than single drops against players that do pay attention. If you miss the target or the ship makes evasive maneuvers, leave the drop zone as quick as possible. You have 4 fragile planes that won't last long in AA fire, and the 1 or 2 torpedo drop is close to useless. You also should start your drop as close to the target as possible, while giving your torpedoes just enough time to arm themselves. Placing the start of the drop zone about as far away from the target as long as the targeted ship itself is still a good rule of thumb. Your torpedoes are also fast, and the American battleships that get mostly played these days are quite slow. For a double torpedo hit, place the aim so the ship is already halfway in the drop zone when your planes release their welcome package. And last but not least, get your CV as close as possible to the front zone without becoming a priority target yourself. Capitalize on the fast turnover of your planes as much as possible. So these were my general tips for the Japanese carrier gameplay. It might feel weird the first time around after playing the American CVs, but trust me, it will be a lot of fun in the end. And now finally, let's do a quick rundown on the HOSHO itself, the entry-level Japanese CV at Tier 4. Let's start with the most important part, the planes. You can right away see the main differences between the tech trees. Here your starting limit is 3 squads in total, with the Japanese specialty of only having 4 planes in each of them. At the same time, your maximal hangar capacity is much lower with only 24 planes in total, so you still only get about 1 reserve for each starting aircraft. Watch out for your planes. They are your most precious resource. Moving on to self-defense, you do have 4 140mm secondary guns and 6 dual 25mm anti-aircraft guns, but they won't really repel anything, so don't really count on them too much. We have much better news with the mobility and survivability though. First of all, that almost 32,000 HP you have under your belt is quite comfortable, especially as fully upgraded you even have an over 25 knot top speed and a respectable about 10-second rudder shift time, making this a relatively mobile little floating island. Where it really lacks is the turning circle that's even slightly worse than the Langley's, so just make sure you have enough space for those larger turns. Your detectability range is about 8 km from both the air and from the surface, so try to sneak as close to the front as possible without risking too much. If it gets too hot, use your speed to get the hell out of there. Moving on to the modules, there isn't really much you can upgrade here. First of all, same as with the Langley, you don't actually have a loadout choice. Those 2 torpedo squads with 1 fighter squadron is all you are going to get. Not that we would be complaining much about that. Now you can and should upgrade both types of planes with priority. This gives you extra speed to the planes and also a hefty boost to survivability. The mandatory hull upgrade can come last. It gives you some extra HP, better rudder shift time and more AA guns, but nothing super exciting. Regarding the optional upgrades, it was a simple choice for me. I did go, as usual, with the improved aircraft survivability and then the reduced chance of flooding and fires. And finally, a quick look at the captain skills. Now at this low level I only have tiers 1 and 2 unlocked, from which I did choose Expert Rear Gunner for improved aircraft self-defense and the Torpedo Armament Expertise for reduced servicing times on the torpedo bombers. So, this was overall a quick look at the HOSHO, a lovely little CV capable of hitting the enemy ships again and again and again. Just make sure your planes have always something to do. Hopefully the next video will give you an example of exactly that. Alright, so here we are in the HOSHO and we managed to get ourselves into a tier 5 game. Now most of the opposition will be tier 3 and 4, so it's not too much worries. What we have to look out for is the Bogue, the enemy tier 5 CV, who will have some nasty fighter squadrons we have to watch out for. We have to avoid them at all costs. Even our fighters don't really stand a chance against them. And, well, we also have to keep an eye on that tier 5 enemy battleship while he's a juicy target. We can't mess around close to it, cause its AA guns will make short work of our fragile planes. Now, finally, after the video of jingles, I thought it was safe to unlock the replay potential of World of Warships, even though it's still not officially released. So you will see me, finally, having well, hopefully a bit better looking video for my ship reviews. So I will jump back and forth between the different views. I will also use the map view, this overview that I actually play the games in, so you can have a better understanding what's really going on with the map. But yeah, well, it definitely looks a whole lot better as we will zoom in. Now, beginning of the match, you can see in the chat that the team is saying that we should go for the cap A and B and leave C to the enemy. Now, looking at the team distribution, we see that that's probably what's about going to happen as well. So this means we have to position ourselves either in the middle or to that most southern island to get away from the enemy eyes, and also to be in relatively close proximity of the actual fights. Now, first of all, first thing we do after releasing the planes and setting the course for our CV is to go on a scouting run with our fighters. And what we have discovered is that the enemy battleships have grouped up and are approaching in the middle, while there is a group of enemy cruisers going on to the left side, approaching Cap A. Now this is quite interesting, you usually don't see them separating like that. What we have to watch out for is, I really don't want to send my torpedo squads to attack that big group of cruisers. They might be still relatively lower level cruisers, but as we can see, there is also the an enemy fighter squadron, and I don't know if it's the bogues or if it's maybe the HOSHOs, but I don't want to take any chances. So that seems like a bad idea, so I turn my torpedo squadrons away and I start approaching the battleships that are coming straight down for Cap B. As you can also see on the map, the right hand front is completely open, so I have to watch out for ships which could slip there through. And look at this massive concentration of battleships. Now, I make it actually a questionable decision. I make a couple during the games, but it's just fun. So, right here I decide I won't go for those two battleships sailing next to the islands, which I should probably do, but instead I will go for the battleship in the middle, and the plan is to make an attack run as right now as he passes the corner. So the plan is hopefully get a couple of shots into the battleship that's now turning away, and the rest to go into the ship that's clearing the island, but I misjudged the speed of that American battleship. And as we can see, although we did catch the first battleship with 2 torpedoes, the rest completely missed, so that was a rather botched attempt. Now we can see that that would be the squadrons, the dive bomber squadrons of the Bogue coming for our aircraft carriers. Now my fighters are already intercepting them, but I really have to take evasive action with my carrier as well. Just as with regular ships against torpedo bombers, you can do the same with your CV, just turning into them or away from them, basically messing up their attack course, and as they try to corrigate their mistake, they suddenly got into a nice little crossfire between the two CVs and both of our fighter squadrons. So that means, with some careful maneuvering and keeping an eye on the map, we managed to completely destroy this run and take down most, if not all, of the enemy dive bombers. Now, while this was going on, it really doesn't look good. Enemy has captured 2 out of the 3 zones, and they are just about capturing the 3rd one as well. And while we are still about even on the ships. The enemy has lost their only destroyer. It really doesn't look good, and in domination mode, if you can't really control the zones, you have basically lost. Even worse than that, the battleships come here through the middle, basically completely unopposed. Well, not completely, but mostly. They are absolutely overwhelming our defenses here, so that means we have to try to take evasive action as well. Now here I actually don't decide not to run to the corner of the map, but I have decided that I will do everything I can to stop the advancement of these battleships. And in order to do that, I will have to get a bit closer, so I will actually try to place myself in hiding from the sight of those battleships behind this little island. And that's as close as I can get without being too much of an obvious target. Now what you will see here is that you have to keep your planes busy at all times. I can score about 2 torpedo hits per squadron, so I have to keep the runs coming, and coming fast. Now let's see which target to go for. It's a big selection of targets. Oh my god, there is just too much to choose from. I decide to move this one right, and I send the other squadron to the left. As you can also see, the our other CV is making attack runs as well, so first I want to see on that side how the attack run goes, and I can follow up later. In the meantime, there is actually target just here, but as you did see, the aiming was not perfect. These ships are moving rather slow, the American battleships. So what you should do is let the ship get into your drop zone by the time you are releasing the torpedoes. As you did see, this ship just started to get into the drop zone when I released the torpedoes, so only one of them hit. If I would have waited just a little bit closer, or would have placed the zone closer, and again it will happen once more, it's too far away. The drop zone is definitely too far away, and the torpedoes have been placed too far away as well. So that ship had, first of all, had time to turn, and second of all, most of the torpedoes were just too early in the water. As I will figure out later during the match, this is basically I think my third run with the HOSHO at this stage, is that you just have to allow the ship to be halfway already in the drop zone when you release the torps. If you release the torps at the right distance, this will be enough time so the ship will be fully in the drop zone when the torpedoes get there. And that means almost guaranteeing at least 2 hits. Now it's still not looking great. We are now controlling the left, but the enemy is controlling 2/3 of the map, and there is a bunch of battleships still sailing into our general direction. Now they're getting too close for comfort, so in the meantime I'm sending my CV towards the corner of the map on the left flank, and I keep harassing the battleships with my torpedoes. Now that very wounded battleship looks like a juicy target indeed, but he gets destroyed. No problem, there are enough targets left for me. So I rearrange my attack course, and as we can see, that cruiser has just completely stopped for some reason. In fact, he's now starting slowly to reverse, so that means he is a very easy target for my torpedoes. And there we go. 2 hits, guaranteed. And as you can see, with such a wide spread, can't really aim for more than 2 hits per drop. But as we can see, we already scored 6 successful hits, and there will be a lot more of them. Now here you can see me a bit derping around with the planes. But then, finally, we can get into an attack position. And we will go after the same cruiser, who is now quite wounded, and we will try to finish him off. This is a perfect attack position. We are getting closer. Let's see how we place the aim this time. You can see the ship is now completely inside, so it's a bit too late this time around. But we do get lucky, and we get our 2 hits. So you did see the first torpedo was almost too fast. So it was slightly misplaced, but we got lucky. Again, the best is if the enemy ship is about halfway in your drop zone when you release the torpedoes. And as you can see, one torpedo squad goes to rearm itself, the other is already approaching the target. And that's the optimal situation you can be in a Japanese CV. Just completely do run after run after run. Now here you can see that I make the drops with one squadron at every single time. And it has to be said that these battleships make a really poor job of trying to avoid my shots. If they would be paying better attention to what's going on around them, I probably would have to, and again, it's a bit too late, I probably would have to use both of my squadrons to do the attack runs and put them in a crossfire. Or do like a delayed second run, so to make sure that they sail into my second spread of torpedoes as they are trying to avoid the first one. And again, one torpedo squadron goes back to rearm, the other one is already approaching its target. Now the enemy is still leading by points, but this is a much better situation. We are now in control of 2 of the zones, and we are also leading by ships quite comfortably. So it's cleaning up time. And this wounded battleship looks like is a perfect target for our torpedoes. Look how quick and agile these planes are, and as you can see, that was a messed up run. And if I would have placed my aim better, that would have been a kill. But we messed it up. It's alright. We will have enough chances to redeem ourselves. Let's see what's left. Our friendly carrier is also making some attack runs. Some missed attack runs. But that drop should do the trick. Now that was not a manual aim, that was an auto aim, as you can see how far these torpedoes were actually launched. And that makes a huge difference. If this American battleship would have paid any attention to those torpedoes, could have avoided them with a very good chance. From that distance, for sure. Now here I get into trying to get the killing blow. And here is something that you should never do. You see, if I would release my torpedoes now, I would have a good angle, but my torpedoes would get into the way of both of my friendly ships. I also don't like the solution that the friendly CV player has chosen, which means that he will fire the torpedoes at a less than optimal angle. They were really easy to avoid. Now, however, as you can see, the friendly ship has cleared the area where the torpedoes will go, and the battleship will nicely sail into my torpedoes. So that's not bad. That means only the enemy CV, the Bogue, is remaining, and he is probably hiding behind one of the islands here on the right hand side. So that means I will rearrange I will use my fighters once again to, well, first of all, to take care of the enemy planes in the sky. I'm going first again against these torpedo fighters. Sorry, torpedo bombers. But they already released their package and they are now heading back to the enemy CV, which tells me that yes, the bogue is definitely in that direction, so I will go instead for these dive bombers that are about to do their attack run. As I see, the friendly CV is also approaching with their fighters, so this should be a fairly easy match. The AA guns of the battleship are joining it as well, and you can see some spectacular moves if you are paying some attention. Once this replay system is fully in place and works as intended, we will have some beautiful footage coming up for sure. So in the meantime, as you can see, I'm closing the distance with all my planes. I'm also, well, redirecting my CV as well, but as the cap counter goes, we basically have one chance to score some hits on that CV, and unfortunately with the Japanese CVs, due to that widespread and to the maximum 4 torpedoes I can release with them, I have zero chance killing it before the counter goes down. But first, even to score some hits, I have to find it, so I send my fighter planes in between these two islands. Behind one of them should be the enemy CV. Where are you, you bastard? There we go. Okay, target spotted. So that means quickly rearrange the torpedo bombers and let's do our attack run. He basically completely given up at this point. He will not move for the rest of the game, and that will allow us to score some really nice torpedo hits. Unfortunately, only the 2 that we can do maximum. And there we go, perfect stationary target. Torpedoes in the water. And we score the 2 hits, but that's not enough to sink that ship. It's quite unfortunate, and the ticket counter is almost down. But that's how you harass the enemy battleships to death with your Japanese CVs. So, this was another fun little game in the HOSHO that even brought us a high caliber award. With the constant bombing runs, we managed to score 14 torpedo hits, sinking 2 of the enemy ships, and we did even shoot down 4 enemy planes. We have been quite busy, we could say. Now, all of this resulted in almost 200,000 credits and over 4,300 XP earned, though it has to be said that I used a plus 50% experience boost in this battle. Still, the almost 1,500 base XP was well enough as well to catapult us to the front of the team lists, so overall, no complaints. Looking at the damage board, we can see that we did 78,000 direct damage with our torpedoes and an additional 34,000 flooding damage on top of it. It seems our victims were all out of repairs at the time of our runs, and fires and flooding can really bite you in the ass in the current patches if you are not careful. So, this was my look at the HOSHO, the Tier 4 Japanese carrier. I hope I could show you how much fun the Japanese CVs can be as well. Don't get disheartened by the widespread 4 torpedo drops you see in the videos. If you did like this video, thank you for considering giving it a like or sharing it. It really helps. Next week, you will have a bit of peace and quiet, you lucky ones, as I will be negotiating contracts in Amsterdam the whole week. But after that, I will be back again with the regular schedule with World of Tanks and World of Warships. I even have an idea for a bonus video, but more on that a bit later. Take care guys, enjoy your weekend, and I hope to see you again soon in one of the next videos.